بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. Today it's our last session in this course, and we are going to review what we have discussed in the previous 9 sessions from Islamic Belief System, Unit 2. This is inshallah a reminder and also preparation for exams. I would like also to acknowledge the presence of 10 of our brothers and sisters, actually one brother, Dr. Salam, and 9 sisters from London, Ontario, from Canada. They have been here for 2 weeks for a course, and today they have joined us, so we welcome them, and inshallah then there will be time to greet each other inshallah during the break. So our session today is very special and a sign of unity in our community, alhamdulillah. Unit 2, as you know, is about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Unit 1 we said it's for self-study, and that is to know about the greatness of the creation, to prepare the mind for thinking seriously about God. So Unit 2 starts with the actual aqa'id. First, there is a discussion about existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, we said existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something which is very difficult to understand, but still we need to argue for it, so that if we want to communicate to other people, or if there are objections, questions, doubts, we can be prepared for that. We had 3 arguments here. One was argument from design, or Burhan al-Nazm. And we said that this argument has 2 premises, 2 parts. One is empirical, so you have to collect data from science about existence of order, existence of design, existence of purpose in the world. The more you know science, the more you can develop your first part of argument. The second part of argument is rational or intellectual, and that is to say that such wonderful order and design cannot be result of accident or chance. It needs an intelligent designer. And then we talked about probability. The second argument that we discussed was Burhanul Fitrah, and we started with giving a definition of Fitrah. What is Fitrah? And we said Fitrah is a type of creation. In Arabic language, literally, Fitrah means a type of creation, because Fatara means created. But we technically use it for a special creation that God has given human beings. What is special in human creation? What are those things that you find in human beings and not in other types of beings? So that is called fitrah. And those things which come from this are fitri. We said those things which are fitri can be found in all human beings, in all ages, in all parts of the world, east, west, north, south, different ethnicities, different times, they all share what is fitri, because we are all sharing our humanity. And also we said those things which are fitri, you don't need to teach people. You just need a time to emerge. Fitri things by themselves, they emerge. It's not that you need to teach people. For example, human beings have deep desire for understanding, deep desire for beauty. You don't need to teach people that you should be interested in beauty. It's there. Yes, those things which are fitri may sometimes not be very active. For example, there are many things in human beings that as a child, still they may have not become very flourished, very obvious. But gradually they become flourished. So, you don't need to teach people, you don't need to get it from others, to borrow or to, acquire. They are there and just need to emerge. And also something very important is everything which is fitri is good. We had a discussion here that we don't have anything which is human and is bad. Anything which is human, any desire which is human is good. Yes, it's possible that we misorient it and then make it bad. For example, the desire for knowledge is good. But if I become nosy, then that is my mismanagement of this good desire. The desire for beauty is good. Yes? But for example, if then I spend too much money on cosmetic, that's my mismanagement. Otherwise, the desire by itself is good. The desire for fame and respect and reputation is good. Every human being wants to be loved, wants to be respected. But if I think that this comes by wrong publicity, this is bad. So this is mismanagement. Otherwise, everything which is human is good. And I think we had a discussion here that you can use actually this language of humanity. And I don't want to repeat, but that is a very important way of arguing that anything which is human is good. And to be human means to be above the level of animals. If we function at the level of animals, we are not living a human life. A human life means above level of animals. And that is good. Okay. After talking about what is fitra, what is fitri, what are the characteristics of fitri things, then we said fitra has two branches. It's either a matter of understanding or a matter of desire, inclination, orientation. Your fitra enables you to understand certain things and also to desire certain things. With respect to God, we have actually both. We have fitri or innate knowledge of God, and we have fitri or innate desire for God. In Farsi, we say Khoda Shanasi and Khoda Ju'i. I think in Urdu perhaps it's the same. So you have Khoda Shanasi fitri, means knowing God by your fitra, and Khoda Ju'i means going after God, desire for God, yearning for God. This is also fitri. You have both. Then we said there are different articulations for Burhan Fitrat, but perhaps we can use these forms that we had in the book, and that is to say that belief in God has been always with human beings from the beginning of creation till now. And whatever belief has always existed in all ages, all nations, is fitri. And it's part of our creation. So it is right, it is correct. So you can focus on universality of this, or you can say it's part of our creation. And here I want to mention one point, although it's not the time to go into details, but because this is very important in case if this point is missed. If someone says, I accept that this has been always existing among human beings in all ages and all parts of the world, and I even accept that this is part of human nature, but still I think it is wrong, what would be the answer? There are 2 points here. First, as I said during the course, Burhan Fitrat is something that people should experience. If someone says, I don't have desire for knowledge, so what can I do? I can just help him to experience this, but I cannot say that with this argument you must have this, because this is something that they have to experience it internally. When we talk about Burhan Fitrat, although we are trying to bring rational explanation, but part of it is that that person should cooperate. If that person doesn't want to cooperate and doesn't want to awaken that fitri understanding, it will be difficult. The second thing is, if something is part of human nature, for us to question that, it means that we are questioning our humanity. Because to be human means to have this knowledge. Even in the whole issue of epistemology, in my understanding, this is one of the best arguments to say that our knowledge is sound and correct. Because some people say maybe everything is just illusion. Maybe we are sleeping and we are dreaming. And whatever you say, they question. Our senses, our perception, everything they question. Even aql, they say, maybe we are created in the way that we understand in this way. Maybe we could have been created in another way. Okay? This is a question that they make. I think one of the best answers is to say, when you by default, by nature, understand this, and now you want to question this understanding, it means that you are questioning your own humanity. As human beings, we have aql, and we use our aql. Even for raising these questions, you use aql. And if you question your very aql, means you are questioning yourself. It's like someone who is sitting on a branch of tree and is cutting that branch. So you are going to collapse. My aql is not something that can be separated from me. There is nothing closer to me than my aql and understanding. So if you want to take it from me, then you are cutting me into pieces. So this was the argument of Fitrat. The third argument was Burhanul Wujub wal Imkan, cosmological argument, which basically starts with understanding the concept of Wujub and Imkan. We said any subject and predicate, when you have a proposition, you say A is B. A is subject, B is predicate. Any subject and predicate, you can consider the relation between them and say either A is B necessarily, or A is B in a contingent way, means it can be B and it can be not B, or A is impossible to be B. We bring the discussion to existence, so let's give the example from existence. When we say something exists, so A is existent. When we say something exists, either it necessarily exists, it's wajibul wujud, or it necessarily does not exist, or it's not necessary to exist and not necessary not to exist. It's just mumkin, it's contingent. The question about God is this: among those things that exist, those things that cannot exist and are impossible to exist, okay, we leave them. We are talking about those things that exist. We see many things exist. The question is this: in this world of beings, is there anything, at least one thing, that is necessary in existence? It must exist, or everything is contingent? Those who deny God, they say everything is contingent. Everything is mumkinul wujud, means it may exist, may not exist. We say, okay, we start with any being that you like. We say, okay, this particular being, for example, this person, is it mumkinul wujud or wajibul wujud? You say mumkinul wujud. Say, okay. So it means that its essence had equal relation with existence and non-existence. It means that if it exists, it has a reason. And if it doesn't exist, it has also a reason. When something has equal relation to existence and non-existence, it means whether it exists or doesn't exist, it's not because of itself. It must be because of something from outside. So if it exists, it's for something else. It's cause. That cause has brought this into existence. Now we move the question to the cause. Is that cause necessary being or contingent being? If it is necessary being, that's God. If it is contingent, we say, okay, that contingent being again needs a cause. So this finally should lead to a point that you have something which is uncaused cause, which is necessary by itself. Otherwise, this goes, endlessly and gets nowhere. And the whole system, of course, also is dependent. So we must have something that exists not because of anything external, not because of anything outside, exists by itself. And when we say exists by itself, we don't mean that has created itself. This is wrong. It's not a matter of that God created himself. Wajibul wujud means has no need to be created. He exists by itself. Even he cannot create himself. Okay? So, this was the summary of Burhanul Wujub wal Imkan. So we mentioned 3 arguments. And then we said, these arguments that we use for existence of God can also help us for understanding attributes of God. What attributes God has. Of course, they are not the same. Some of these arguments can help us with respect to all attributes, like Burhanul Wujub wal Imkan is the one that has the capacity to help you with all attributes of God. But for example, Burhan al-Nadhr, argument from design, can help you with understanding that God has knowledge, God has power. Okay? So, you can use arguments for existence of God also to understand some of the attributes of God. Before we mention arguments for attributes of God, first we should review different types of attributes of God. You remember we said divine attributes are divided into two. We have first sifat thubuti and sifat salbi, means those attributes which are to be affirmed, and salbi means those which are to be negated, negational. Okay? For example, God has knowledge. Is this thubuti or salbi? This is thubuti. God has power. This is affirmative, to affirm it. But to be visible, we reject. To occupy a space, a place, we reject. This is salbi. Another terminology is attributes of beauty and glory. Sifatul Jamal wal Jalal. Jamal is for thubuti, Jalal is for salbi. The first attribute of God that we discussed was knowledge of God. And if you remember, we said to know that God has knowledge is very important. It's very important part of our understanding of God is that He has knowledge. And great emphasis has been put in the Quran on knowledge of God. To the extent that the Quran says God created 7 skies and 7 earths and whatever happens between them, so that you know that He has knowledge and He has power. Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawatin wa min al-ardi mithlahunna yatanazzalu al-amru baynahunna lita'lamu anna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir wa anna Allah qad ahata bi kulli shay'in ilma. Okay? So, knowledge of God is a very important quality that we should know about God. And with respect to knowledge of God, we said that He knows everything. He knows Himself eternally. He knows the world. He knows us as His actions, as His creatures. Even before we are created. In His essence, He has knowledge of Himself and His actions and His creatures. But also when we are created, we are present for Him. And again, He knows us. So He knows us before we are created and He knows us after we are created. Remember, we had a distinction between ilm huzuri and ilm husuli. Knowledge by presence and conceptual knowledge. Knowledge by presence is when what is known is present for the knower. Like your knowledge of yourself, your knowledge about your joy, when you are happy, when you are fearful, when you are hungry, that feeling, as long as that feeling is going on, you have knowledge by presence. So God has knowledge by presence. God does not have mind and doesn't use concepts like us. For God, everything is known because either they are His creatures that are present for Him or they are known through His own essence. Then, about power of God. What is power? We said power means كون الفاعل بحيث إذا شاء فعل وإذا لم يشاء لم يفعل. When the agent has this ability that when he decides, he does. When he doesn't want, he doesn't do. So, power should be something that has two sides. If I want, I do it, and if I don't want, I don't do it. If I can just do, and I cannot stop, this is not power. Do you understand? Maybe before studying this part, you thought that power means to be able to do something. But scholars say to be able to do is not power unless you are also able not to do. When you are able not to do and then you do, it's good. But if you are not able to stop, like for example, a person is falling from top of a building. He's falling very fast. But we cannot say he has power of falling. Why? Because he cannot stop. So this is not quwwah. This is not qudra. Okay? Or if, for example, imagine there is a big magnet, and because you have lots of metal on you, is very fast taking you towards itself. Okay, you are moving very fast towards that magnet. But you cannot say, I am doing something. You are not doing anything. You don't have power. Okay? If you are doing it, it's doing by force. You can say this is al-fa'ilu bit-taskhir. You know, we have different types of fa'il. Means you are under control of something else. So when we say God has power, we mean that he is able to do when he wants, when he wills. And if he doesn't will, he doesn't do. And then we said power belongs to what? To something which is possible. وَعَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. We said if something is impossible, then it's not a question of whether God is powerful or not. When something is impossible, it's out of question. You remember? We said, for example, if someone said, can God create something bigger than himself? Can God create a stone that he cannot lift? We said these questions are contradictory in themselves. They have problems in themselves. It's like we say, is this mathematician so good that he can prove 2 plus 2 5? You say no. He said then we don't have interest in him. This is not his problem that 2 plus 2 is not 5. Okay? It's not like some accountants that can make 2 plus 5. Okay. So, knowledge, power, and then life. Life of God is also very important. What we mean by life, we don't mean definitely physical life. We mean by life having knowledge and power and will together. Anything, any being that has knowledge and power and will, it's alive. Okay? And God is living, al-hayy. Actually, he is the source of any life, and any life comes from him. Ya man lam yarith al-hayata min hayy. But he has not inherited life from anything. Anything from God inherits life. Then we mentioned another quality which is qadim or azali or eternal. We said God is qadim, is eternal. But we said when we say God is eternal, it doesn't mean that God is very old. He has been there for trillions of years. No, we said when we say God is eternal, it means he is outside time framework. He is creator of time. Therefore, he cannot be limited by time. In the same way that he doesn't have a space. No space can contain God. God is beyond time and space. Then we mentioned some of the negational qualities. For example, God is not compound. Murakkab is not compound. Because any compound depends on its parts. God is not physical object. Because anything physical can be divided into smaller parts. And then it depends on those parts. Then we had a good discussion. If you remember, we actually spent good time on it. The difference between attributes of essence and attributes of action. This was very important. And we said attributes of essence have no timing, but attributes of action are abstracted from relation between God and his action. If I wanted to make exam for you interesting, I would ask you about this. Be ready for this. Attributes of action. What is attribute of action and why they can have timing? You can say, God forgave me today. God has no time. How can you say God forgave me today? Or God, for example, knew as a quality of action what I said just now. The answer is, we said qualities of action are abstracted from relation between God and his creature. This relation has two sides. God is eternal, but the other side has time, has a space. When you have relation between something which has no time and something which has time, the relation has time or has no time? The relation has time. Because the relation depends on the weakest part. Okay? The relation depends on the weakest part. When I have time, then my relation with God has time. Although God doesn't have time. Okay? So this was something that we discussed in details. And then after discussion about qualities of essence and qualities of action, we discussed about the relation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and us, and in particular, of course, before that we also discussed about something about justice of God and wisdom of God. Then we talked about relation. We defined what is justice, what is wisdom, what is the difference between justice and wisdom. If you remember, we said wisdom requires more than justice. Yeah? You may not violate anyone's right, but still you may be unwise. Like a person who gives from his own pocket to people different amounts. Give someone no money, give someone £1,000, gives another person £1,000,000. We say, you are Zalem. He says, no, I am not Zalem because I'm giving from my own money. Say, okay, you are not Zalem, but you are not wise unless you can explain why you gave them differently. So, we said, with respect to God, we don't have any right over God to claim. So, if someone has more, for example, blessings from God and someone doesn't have, we cannot question his justice, but we can ask God, who is wise, why he has created this world with these differences. Why someone is healthy, someone is ill. Okay? So we said it's a question of wisdom, not justice. And with respect to justice, we only said that we can think of justice and injustice for God when it comes to something that he has undertaken and promised. For example, if he says, you do this, I reward you, then he has created right for us. Okay? But otherwise, by default, we don't have any right over God. Anything that we have is gift. When someone is just giving you gift, you cannot, say, you have to give me more. Okay? So, it's a matter of wisdom. And then we made few points about wisdom. And we said, first of all, because we have proved that he is perfect, he has knowledge, he has power, he has no need, then if there is anything that we don't understand, it's because of our limited knowledge. We cannot question. You remember I said, if there's the best architect in the world, who has the best, achievements, and then I don't understand part of his design, I cannot say you are not, wise. You are not able. Our knowledge is limited, and also we said this world is the best possible world. It's not perfect. Physical world, material world cannot be perfect. Things can interact, can have impact on each other. If someone drives carelessly, can hit me, can kill me. This is not perfect world. But we said actually for the purpose that God has for us in this world, this is the best world. If we were put in heaven, that was not serving the purpose. Because then in heaven, people are not able to prove their honesty, their loyalty, their commitment. Because there is no test, there is no trial. If you want to give people opportunities to get good marks, you have to have exam. Yes? Okay. So, we talked about then suffering and why we have suffering, and after that we talked about relation between God and the creation, and in particular we focus on rububiyyah, that God is Rabb, Lord. And Rabb is the one who manages every aspect of our life or our existence if we don't have life, like non-living beings. Rububiyyah cannot be separated from khaliqiyyah, from creatorship. It's not possible that I am created by someone and someone else runs me and manages my affairs, gives me rizq. It's not possible. You remember why? Why it's not possible that someone creates me and another person feeds me? You remember I gave you an example for Tawheed. I said, if there is a flower in your mind and a person in my mind, the person in my mind cannot smell the flower in your mind. If there's a person in my mind who has plenty of food and a person in your mind who is hungry, the person in my mind cannot feed the person in your mind. So it's impossible that someone creates us and another person feeds us. Because any creature is only related and dependent on his own creator. So rububiyyah and khaliqiyyah come together. Everything that we receive is from our creator. And therefore, he's the only one to be worshipped. Because everything we have comes from him. So we talked then about Tawheed, different dimensions of Tawheed, and in particular we said we should only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not associate anyone to him, especially in Ubudiyah. Of course we said, we have Tawheed in Zat, Tawheed in Sifat, in Af'al, in Ubudiyah. In all of them we should be careful. But even if someone has Tawheed in Zat and Sifat and Af'al, but when it comes to worship, he worships other people, this is shirk. And we said we have shirk jali, explicit shirk, and we have shirk khafi, hidden shirk, which is something that can even penetrate into believers. Shirk khafi. When you believe or act as if someone else is independently doing something for you. That is shirk khafi. Okay, this was a summary of what we discussed in 9 sessions based on Unit 2 of Islamic belief system. I hope, inshallah, it was clear, and if there was any shortcoming from my side, I ask you for forgiveness, and I ask Allah, inshallah, to give us ability, inshallah, to do better and more, inshallah, in future. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.